And welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposals. I am your host, Coach Donnie Hesse, back with another AFL round review. We are 9 rounds through the AFL season. Holy shnikes, were we treated to an absolutely fantastic round of footy. And here to join me, the man, the myth, the legend, the voice of the USAFL, Mr. Brian Barish, media manager extraordinaire. Brian, it is great to see you, sir.
It's great to see you too, Donnie. Only one of those things are true, but I appreciate the intro nonetheless. Uh, yeah, you should notice, I hope I'm not pulling back the curtain too much, but we arranged what round I'm in pretty far in advance, and boy, did I draw the right one, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's been this was really a fun round. It's great, to get the season underway, and Donnie, as everybody knows, Donnie is involved at the Des Moines Roosters of the USAFL, and of course, as Donnie mentioned, the USAFL. A season 2025 season just getting underway. For those of you obviously who don't know, we have a new website this year. It's AussieRulesUSA.com. It's I would say probably almost a decade in the making, and it's a great new website where you can check out not only the teams but a lot of the games that are happening. If you happen to be in the USA or you have family or a mate in the USA, tell them to get around it. I know Donnie's club in Des Moines is hosting a fantastic tennis-side tournament, the 80-35 tournament. And then if you have friends or know somebody or you're in Philly, Raleigh, North Carolina, Kansas City, or Denver, get around it. This we're coming to your city this summer for the regional championship series, and then Tucson, Arizona, a place we've never been to before for nationals, October 17th through the 19th. So, fantastic season underway. Obviously, some great stuff happening in Australia, but our season is just getting underway in the States now. So if you're nearby, get around it.
Yeah, it's always fun. It's I know when Brian and I sit down before we even get started recording this, we sit down and we regale talking American footy even before we even go to some of this stuff. And it's always fun to catch up because Brian has to have his ear on the entire country, and sometimes it can give him headaches. So it's always fun to sit here and to catch up with him before. But we are here to talk AFL footy and what has to be hands down one of the best rounds of football I have ever seen. With what was it, six? I think it was what was it, one, two, three, four, five, at least 5 games under 2 goals. Um, what an amazing round of footy. As you said, you pulled the proverbial fantastic ace in the hole in this one when it comes to your thoughts on what is a marvelous round at 9
Well, every game except for D's and Hawks was 15 points or
or
less,
less.
and Melbourne Hawthorn was very close. In fact, I think if my math serves me right, it was 1 point. Hawthorn led by 1 point heading into that fourth quarter before they went on to kick home by almost 6 goals. I mean, and it isn't even just the fact that these teams that the games were close. You had teams at opposite ends of the table, teams that are, probably going to be a safe bet to make the eight, competing with teams that are on the other side of that red line, and or basically the other way around. So that's what really added some spice to the round, and we almost saw the upset of all upsets at the end of it. But yeah, if that round didn't galvanize yourself as a footy fan, you might want to check your pulse.
Yeah, it was absolutely insane. I know Sunday was insane as I was sitting there going through the results and everything like that, going, wow, were we treated to it. So let's jump right into it. Let's go through each game. Well, let's start off. Thursday night footy sees the Collingwood Magpies fly out west, keep a few at home, which I thought was fantastic, which I thought was interesting that Coach McRae told us earlier in the week that he would sit not only Penderbury, DeGoey, and Maynard get to stay home in Victoria, and they still come away with 4 points, knocking off Fremantle by 14, 97-83. I mean, the hits just keep on hitting for this Fremantle Dockers side.
Yeah, they're a team that I feel like is just kind of on the precipice. I'll get there with my new tongue at some point. I think they're maybe one step away from the top flight, and I don't think they played. I don't think they played terrible. I think
I
they
agree.
hung with Collingwood for most of the game. They won the fourth quarter by a point, so they were very much in it, but. they were struggling keeping in touch. They spread out the scoring. Andrew Brayshaw and Jordan Clark got a whole bunch of touches, but
Mhm.
Collingwood, I think, has really kind of shown too good. I mean, Jamie Elliott kicking 6 goals. How
Yep.
can you compete with that? Um, we would be bad American footy fans if we didn't mention, of course, the milestone game. Mason Cox overtook Don Pike with his 133rd appearance. That now leads all American-born players, and that is a list that includes of 4 other people, not only in VFL/AFL, but if you include Danny Marshall on the women's game, of course, Jason Holmes and the late Sanford Wheeler being the other members of that. And he had 8 disposals in the game. I think he was used really sort of as that tall option. He platooned well on the hitouts, but I mean, I think Fremantle against any other team probably wins this game. Against an informed Magpies team, they really didn't stand much of a chance.
Yeah, and even minus some of the guys that they did. Again, this is a Collingwood team that the crazy part about it is this only showed some of the depth that they have. I mean,
Yeah.
Allen comes in and plays well again. Jamie Elliott kicks six in this, but you see the Dacos magic of both Josh and Nick playing fantastically. It was fascinating watching this game just because you saw Steel Sidebottom, the ever never aging Steel Sidebottom. I love watching him play.
Yeah.
He's so much fun, and the fact that he didn't have his compadre of Scott Pendlebury, it was a little weird seeing Steele there and not Pendle, so it was fantastic. But this is a Fremantle team. I can't put my finger on what's wrong. And I think that's the part that's the most frustrating because if you look at their list, this is an impressive list. You bring over Shy Bolton in the off season, incredible goal kicker. Josh Tracy's been fantastic in front of goal. Murphy Reed's come out of nowhere and looked like a fantastic pickup for Fremantle here. So I kind of look at this Fremantle team and go, really solid defense, really good midfield, decent enough forward line to win you footy games. You gotta win this one. So to fall short against, like I said, an undermanned Collingwood side, rather frustrating. And I could hear the calls from Western Australia, even over here in the States. There's some frustration to where to where Longmuir is his seat's getting a little warm now. And normally Fremantle's a very understanding club, but man, his seat has got to be warm. It got to be cooking. You got to be cooking some eggs on his behind at the pace it's going, which is rather not good, especially the way it's going on. To that one, we jump to Friday night football and an interesting matchup here as Carlton take on the St. Kilda Saints. Carlton get the 15-point win. The Blues maybe are back. I still am not 100% sure I want to say that the Blues are back, but it was great to see him play fantastic. And I know that the talk the entire time was TDK's giant offer from St. Kilda. Was this an audition for the big Ruckman to switch over to the St. Kilda, or was it not? It's a funny little background. So your thoughts on this one because I was a cracking game of football, but Carlton just did enough what they needed to do to get the win.
It is, and I don't. I think you're right, Donnie. I don't think it was an overly convincing win with the way they played, and honestly, like the way that the Saints have played, again, I feel like a better team probably hammers the Blues. They're again, you're looking at 2 teams that at the end of this round are only essentially a game out of a final spot. But really, like, are either teams good enough to be finals? I'd have to say no. I think Carlton did play. I think they did step up down the stretch of this game and played well. And you know both Charlie Curnow and Harry McKay picking up 3 goals each. I mean, Cripps really wasn't as dominant as he was. George Hewitt did play well though, and as for and you mentioned again De Koning, like, yeah, is this possibly of it is a very odd backstory, but in terms of focusing on this game, I think Carlton played just well enough to win, and I don't know that it was terribly convincing really from either team as to whether or not they're good enough to one get to September and then stick with September.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you. I'm not super convinced with either of these teams right now. There's still some deficiencies that your Brisbane's, your Collingwoods, your Hawthorns right now will expose them. So we'll really have to see how that goes. I'm fascinated to keep track of both those teams because, again, I thought Rowan Marshall held himself pretty well against TDK. I know there were moments where TDK was monstering it, but Rowan Marshall still had himself a darn good game. I'm interested to see how the St. Kilda Saints use Nasiah Wanganeen Miller as the year goes on. Do you see him shift more center midfield, or does he stay in that halfback flanker position? It'd be fascinating to watch that. So the one game that got out of hand, but this was also one that had some controversy in it because I know that there was several things running around that after this game happened of the obvious trip that was missed. But Hawthorn get the win by 35, 91-56. I mean, the Hawks getting it done, getting a win. But again, I'm tired of the controversies continuing to overshadow a game. It's very frustrating.
Yeah, it really is, and it's a shame too because I think it's spoiling an otherwise. I mean, this is the sort of game where you looked, it was close both the entire way.
Mhm.
Hawthorn up a goal at the end of the first quarter, up by 1 point at both halftime and three-quarter time, and then you had Jack Gunston kicking three, Mabior Chol kicking a couple in the end, Josh Weedle putting the game away late, and with the exception of Kazi Pickett's goal midway through the fourth quarter. Uh, the Hawks ended up kicking, seven of the last eight goals to kick home, and I think that should be really, if you're a Hawks fan, I think the Demons, I don't think are finals material at all this season. They've really struggled. Again, they're only 8 points out of a final spot. There's still more than half a season to play, but
Mhm.
I think this is a sort of game the Hawks should have won. Should they have probably won this a little bit sooner in the game rather than sticking with the Demons, sticking with them as long as they did? That's fine, but um, as a Hawk supporter, I don't think you can look the other way on this one. I think that it's a very important victory and it keeps them in the top four for now.
Yep, keeping the winning going. You got to, especially with no Will Day through the center, getting wins, picking up 4 points, putting stacking up wins, stacking up 4 points is especially essential earlier in the season to put yourself to where you could have that little bump later on in the year and it's not going to affect your chances of making finals. So we'll go to the one that I know I bet there's a few people watching this podcast fascinated on my opinion on this. The Essendon Bombers get a win over the St. Kilda Saints 71-63 and just indulge me for just a second, Brian.
Yeah.
Son of a building block in 3 quarters did my Sydney Swans irk me off this round. And anybody that saw my tweet this weekend knows I it was 1 a.m. in the morning when this game airs, or near midnight when this game ended, and I wanted to throw my phone across the room because I was so frustrated because again the Swans do it an absolutely atrocious first half, go down by more than 4 goals, and I sat there at 11:30 and I get a message from one of my Swans fans going, Donnie, you might as well go to bed. This one's over. and, and I thought about it and I got through halftime and I went, no, I'm not going to do that. That's not. And in the second half, Dean Cox makes a few adjustments, a few things happen, and the Swans teased me, Brian. They teased me so hard. I got so excited there midway through the fourth quarter. It was down to a goal and a half. I thought they had it. They're going to do it. They're going to pull off like they did against GWS. And then and then some controversy, and then I won't get into. I know a few people are probably going, Coach, what do you think of the whole Zach Merritt, Nick Blakey thing? I will be honest. I'm confused because I thought the head was sacrosanct. But if a guy gets hit in the head, but he's looking at the football and gets the ball, then it doesn't matter if you whack somebody guy in the head. That's the only part that's a little confusing to me personally. I get it, I understand it, but I don't. I think that the ruling eventually off that is a little confusing personally. The tackle on Nick Martin is another one that I know a lot of Swans fans absolutely lost their you know what over. Was it a dangerous tackle? I don't think so. I think Nick Martin kind of let himself look a little bit more, but again, personally, the Bombers were fantastic in this game. I don't want to take anything away from it. The Bombers were fantastic in this game. Zach Reed was fantastic. Andrew McGrath, they just absolutely repelled. Again, the Swans were atrocious going inside 50 in that first half. I mean, it was a intercept mark palooza. So I'm frustrated because this was a game that was there for them. But an atrocious first half put them in too big a hole and they just couldn't dig themselves out.
Well, and just also looking at the numbers, Donnie, is Sydney kicked 5 goals, 11, sorry, 6 goals, 11 in the second half, and completely kept Essendon. Essendon in the second half only kicked 2 goals, 4. In fact, they only had one rushed behind in the final term. But when you come into a final, when you come into the final quarter, trailing by 30 points, and
Hmm.
you have 8 scoring shots, and you can only connect on 3 of them.
Yep.
That's telling. And I
Oh,
think
yeah.
that Essendon, I think, really had the. I think Essendon is up for this match. I mean, they're currently at the end of the round now. They're in that four-way tie with 20 points. But remember, they have still that game in hand over Gold Coast, which, as the season goes on, and this is, I'm sure it's been mentioned many times, this is my
Looking
first
bigger and
appearance
bigger.
here. It's getting bigger and bigger and
Yep.
bigger. And especially if Essendon is on the other side of that red line when it's time to play that game. But I mean, hats off to the Bombers. I think, this is the sort of
Hmm.
game when you look at them going in against Sydney. I think the Swans, like you said, this was definitely a game the Swans could have won on the road. And for Caddy kicking 3 goals, Zach Merritt was his normal self, kicking a
Yep.
couple. Um, I liked watching the play of Mason Redmond getting a lot of the ball, Nick Martin, like you said, and Andrew
Hmm.
McGraw. Like you know, I mean, this is a big win for Essendon as they try and keep their foes alive. As for Sydney,
Hmm.
where are they next week? They're hosting in Carlton on Friday night, and that's going to be a game I think is as the season goes on where they sit, the games are going to become more and more heavier in terms of them, in terms of if the more they lose, the more their chances of the finals are going to slip away. And I think
Hmm.
this is a huge loss, and now they have to win next week against Carlton, I think.
Hmm. Yeah, it's like I said, I was more frustrated because the Swans. I don't want to say this, but the Swans probably should have won this game. But their kicking was absolutely atrocious in the first. Their defense was atrocious in the first half. Their kicking was atrocious in the second half. Plain and simply, Essendon did what they needed to do in the first half, and really did kind of hold on for dear life in the second half. If Justin McInerney had one that if he rushes it and if he kicks a goal, it's a 2 point game. And I think the Swans run over them. If I'm being 100% honest, if you look at the way the pace of play and the way things were going, but the Bombers did what they needed to do. And again, all hats off. I'm not taking anything away from the Bombers. They were fantastic in their first half. They absolutely Swiss cheese the Swans defense in the first half, ran up the score, and were able to hold on. So again, all do. As the Swans fan that I am, oh man, was that a frustrating one to get off and to look at social media and oh, it was there. It was there, and it was so frustrating. So now we'll go up to Darwin, and I have to say this was a fantastic game that gets a little bit lost considering it was playing at the same time as the showdown. But this was a fantastic game again. Gold Coast showing why Darwin is their home away from home with a 10-point win, 106-96. As I kind of agreed with you, are the Suns legit? It's hard for me to look at it again. We're still early in the season. There's still some teams they haven't played yet that are near the top of the table. But are the Suns legit? It's sure looking like it because again, they look so good up in Darwin. But the doggies damn near won this game. And Bontempelli coming back, no Trelaw. They looked fantastic in this game. This was a marvelous game of football up in the top end.
I think Bontempelli nearly almost single-handedly dragged him back into this
Yep.
game and kicked that amazing goal towards the end. And Sam Davidson with a couple of goals in that fourth quarter. But I think Ben King has really kind of emerged for me, and he had a,
Hmm.
a fantastic game had a fantastic game here. It's amazing to me. I mean, the Suns have been if you look at their history, I mean, this is a team that when they and GWS both came into the league in 2011, 2012, they took two completely opposite paths. GWS knew that they were going to have a lot of lean years. They built up all their young players, and obviously, eventually, it took them almost, 70 seasons, actually even more less than that, because they went to the preliminary final against the Bulldogs, but they were able to build. They did the slow build. Gold Coast, they went out and they signed, Gary Ablett straight away. They
Mhm.
signed all these really good players straight away. They wanted to be they wanted to be good right off the bat. They have never finished higher than 12th. I think they're going to smash that this season. Now, like you said, they still have some tough teams to play, and they're going to be playing Hawthorn at home. And Hawthorn, of course, is coming off that, a lot of momentum, I think,
Mhm.
in that game against Melbourne. But I like the way that Gold Coast plays. I mentioned King. Um, you know, some of the other players that they had, Flanders and Graham each kicked a couple. Nick Holman kicked a couple before he went
Mhm.
out. And Tuke Miller, he's doing fantastic. He did fantastic in this game as well. I think, and this was I think if they finish higher than they are, and if they make a deep run into the finals, I think they can look back at this game and say
Mhm.
that helped set them up for this run.
Well, and I will say this, and I said it during the off, I said it in the preseason. I said there's two signings that they brought in that I think absolutely were perfect for footy today. John Noble and Dan Rioli, and both so far this season have been spectacular signings because it was the one thing they were missing a lot last year was that runoff halfback, the great distributor off of halfback. They bring in two in one off season, and it shows you how good that this is that he was able to bring up Dan Rioli and John Noble, and they have fit in seamlessly. So it's gonna be, like I said, it's gonna be fun to watch this Suns team because just looking at it, they are going to be very, very dangerous at home. The question is, can they keep the momentum if they have to go on the road? Will be the biggest question on that. Let's go to it. I'm going to say it right now, and I know this is going to ruffle some feathers in Victoria. This is the best rivalry in the AFL. I don't care what anybody says. These two teams legitimately do not like each other. There is almost detest between these two fan bases. And I love it because the footy that these two teams played this particular round was magnificent. As the Adelaide Crows get the win 89-84 over their rivals Port Adelaide. The showdown was sensational. I really, really hope one time, come on, AFL, give us this on a Friday night, clear air, nothing else. You cannot tell me that this is not one of the best rivalries in the entire AFL. Adelaide, Port Adelaide, the showdown. Mwah, chef's kiss. Loved it.
Well, you also, and I know you know this, and I know that most people listening to this who have followed the league know this, but in case you don't, you have to remember this is really one club with history, that one singular club with history that goes back,
Hundreds of years.
more than 100, 100, really 120, 155 years at this point, against every other club that has come up through South Australia. I mean, you remember,
Mhm.
of course, when Port Adelaide was trying to get into the AFL, when it was really the VFL at that
Mhm.
point, and the Crows were basically created as a way to prevent that. And so, and Port Adelaide is the most decorated club in the state competition. So, of course, it's kind of, in a small way, it is kind of like everybody hating on the Yankees. It's kind of like everybody hating on, but imagine like an all-star team in baseball, you know, playing the Yankees, and everybody just
Pretty
saying, we
much.
don't care what team you come from, where in the country you come from, as long as you beat the frickin' Yankees, or like
Pretty much.
everybody teaming up to play the Cowboys, say. Um, again, we're looking at a situation where I think, Port Adelaide should have won this game. You count that, you know, Adelaide heading into that fourth quarter, leading by 3 points. Fogarty kicks a goal early on. Rankin kicks two of the best goals that I've seen him kick,
Mhm.
about a minute apart. And, you know, they're up at that point by 21 points, and you think they're home and hosed. Four behinds in a row. Burn Jones gets a goal to cut it to 12. Then Finlayson, who really busted his hump in the fourth quarter, he kicks a goal. Now they're within five. But Rosie, Georgiadis, Richard, Horn, Francis, Bergman, they had a rush behind in there too. Any one of those finds the big sticks, then Port wins this showdown.
Hmm.
This is another one in the same way that Gold Coast. I think that if Adelaide makes a deep run, you kind of have to look back and, rivalry aside,
Hmm.
this is a character building win for the Crows. And I think that, as they head into their next game and they head to the G to take on Collingwood next week, and then, Collingwood, we talked about them. I think that gives them a lot of momentum as well. I think not just the fact that they beat Port, but the fact that they beat them in that particular game. But I think, that's something that's going to smart Port Adelaide now. And again, they're now 4 points out of a final spot. So it's a huge, huge, huge victory for the Crows.
Yeah, no, 100% with you on that one. And even the showdown medal goes to Connor Rosie, which drew some ire from the Crows fans. But again, it's one of those. Rosie was one of the reasons that Port Adelaide was in that game. So hard to argue with that. When we move to the Sunday slate, and man, were we treated to some absolute rippers. I know some people would think when you looked at this on paper, you thought Richmond near the bottom, West Coast near the bottom. It's going to be a stinker. Was this a fantastic game of footy? Some roller coasters as the Richmond Tigers get a 2-point win over the Eagles, 81-79. Fantastic for the Tigers to get another win. But man, were the Eagles kicking themselves because this was their win. This was the one win to get the zero out of the win column, and they just let it slip out of their fingers.
What is it? The yellow and black and Tom Brown game. That'll be ever known as with that fantastic game-saving tackle. And look, I think this is the best game that both of these teams have played this season. And I know I have a couple of friends who are West Coast Eagles fans who are just like, ah, crap, here we go again, that
Mhm.
sort of thing. But I feel like they have to be heartened by this. In the end of the day, I think Richmond was too good. But really, Richmond led by 7 at quarter time. They didn't lead by, they led by 1 at the half, 4 at three-quarter time, and 1 by 2. Brown's tackle, I think, is going to go down. I mean, you think of some of the great stops of the great defensive plays in AFL history. That's an all-timer. And it's a shame that it's a bottom half of or really bottom quarter of the latter game for that this happened, because it's not going to get the same press that, say, like Leo Barry's mark in the grand final.
Mhm.
But that really, I think, the Tigers are not going to be playing in the finals at all. I don't think. I mean, they are, well, they're up to 12 now. Again, they're only 8 points out of a spot. I don't know that they've been playing it consistently well, and the rest of their schedule, I think, is going to be pretty difficult. Although they do play North next week, and we're going to talk about North in a moment. So who knows where this will go for them? But you know, you have to, when you're sitting at 0 and 9, you have to look at the positives for the Eagles, and I think that's McQualter and them, they really have to they really have to take whatever positives they can, and then they're hosting St. Kilda. I'm not convinced that they won't hang into the game against St. Kilda, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I know some people are like, well, we can't have honorable losses anymore. Well, damn it, West Coast gave themselves an honorable loss in this one again. I think it's just more frustrating because if you listen to the talk at the start of the year where there were people saying Richmond wasn't even going to win a game, and that was Richmond's third win, and it's West Coast that's has no wins so far through the rounds of footy. So I think West Coast will get a win. Somebody's going to have an off day. West Coast is going to catch them just right. I mean, who knows when it's going to be. But man, it was great to see these two get after it, and to see a good game of footy despite where they sit on the ladder. I have to give that. Let's jump down to GMHBA Stadium where another shocker of a Sunday, the first of the two shockers on Sunday, as the Giants do it again for the fifth time in a row. They go down to the Cattery and steal 4 points from the Cats. And I have to be honest on this one. Did not see this one coming because the Giants were playing atrocious football. They were not playing well and just come off a tough loss to the Swans. And I couldn't see him going down and knocking out the Cats. But darn it, Tom Green, Toby Green, and Adam Kingsley, they found a way to steal 4 points, and the Cats have to be kicking themselves because a 4 point loss at the Cattery, tough one to a team that's not playing great footy right now.
Well, when you kick 31 scoring shots and you get 17 behinds, if you try to kick yourself, you probably miss. And Mark Blitzovs, I mean, I'm sorry, you got to kick that goal, man. You can't when you're 30 meters in front, you can't be hitting the post. I mean, and they had a couple of chances late. They had a couple of good steals. The Giants looked absolutely shaken in the last maybe 5 6 minutes of that
Mhm.
game after Riccardi put them in the lead. I think the again and again we get back to you looking at some of these opportunities and some of these close games again you know, Danger has a behind. Neal has a behind. Tyson Stengel, who had kicked a goal earlier in the quarter, he kicked the behind. Holmes had one early on. If Blitzovs kicks the goal, they win the damn game.
Yep, I agree.
So the this is a game that I think Scott has to go back and look and say, listen, it's this is we got to forget this because now and look how big of a win this is. I mean, and Jesse Hogan. I mean, Hogan kicked 7 goals. I mean, we can't gloss over that.
Yep.
It's GWS is I think is a good team. They're still a good team. They're going to be in the finals conversation as it is now, and they're in that group with 20 points. They're a half game ahead of Essendon, as is now Geelong is, and of course the Bulldogs. But I was really impressed by the way that they played. I was really impressed that they were able to keep their composure and really stave off a couple of good chances that frankly like the cat should have buried and they should have taken the 4 points. So I think this is a big win for them. And now they get to play that Fremantle team that nobody quite knows what's happening. And I think at home, that's a game you think they should win.
Mhm. Yeah, no, 100% with you. This is the Giants got to be just going. Kingsley's got to be going. Whew, thank you. We found a way to win. And you caught the Cats at the perfect time again. Usually the Cats are not usually this wayward kicking on goal. So the Giants may have be thanking their lucky stars that the Cats had their wayward kicking. And then to add to the Sunday craziness, we're going to go down to Ninja Stadium. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Ninja Stadium. And still getting used to that fun one. I know a couple of the Triple M broadcasts I listened to, they went Ninja Stadium. Hwah! And yeah, had a little bit of fun with it. But the Brisbane Lions and North Melbourne Roos play to a 71-71 draw. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I said you were hearing that correct. North Melbourne Brisbane 71-71 draw. Man, this was a stunner. And to be honest with you, if I'm the Brisbane Lions and their team, they're thanking their lucky stars because I think North should have won this game.
They absolutely should. And I think this is still an upset, even though this wasn't a victory. But when you have the 17th best team, and let's face it, North has been,
A basket
perennial.
case, if we're honest with ourselves. And again, my
Of,
North fans, I love you to death, but be honest, it has been a basket case for several years.
I mean, they're perennial easy beats, as our friend Peter Holden would say, and
Mhm.
and the fact that they took the best team. I mean, they're top of the table now, although their percentage. How about this? Their percentage is eighth best in the league right now at
Mhm.
112.9 after this game. The next after them is Carlton, and they're nine. They're sitting in 10th on the ladder right now. But both of these again, another chance of what could have been. Hipwood had a chance to kick a goal with about 3 minutes to go in the game. He missed. And then Zurhar had a chance in the maybe the last minute and a half to put Brisbane ahead. He missed, or rather to put North Melbourne ahead. He missed. So once again, everything that happens in this game really determines the outcome. I thought this was a brilliant game played by both teams. We talked about how Richmond and how West Coast played their two best games of the year. This has to be North's best game of the year by far. You know, looking at how well Harry Sheezel played, looking at Davies Uniacke, how well LDU played. Again, this is a situation where they didn't get the win, but there's some good stuff that they can take, and as they head into their rest of the season, and they're heading to Richmond, that they have a chance to pick off another team. So they didn't get the 4 points, but they didn't leave empty-handed from their game in Tasmania at the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Stadium.
I love it. Nah, I sat there and I sat there and watched it. It was just in awe at this game. And again, I'm so happy for North because again, I go back and forth with several North supporters, and again, they have been through so much. And again, I know it's only 2 points, probably should have been four. Again, just could not execute when they needed to, but it's something. It's something positive to go off of. You don't know. Very rarely can you steal 2 points away from a defending premier and top of the table team at that time. So, wow, just a fantastic round of footy. I thought it was fantastic. The round ends on a draw. The decrease of score from each game was absolutely
The
fantastic. So,
Draw FC gets a win on the day, and this is your periodic reminder that if you have friends who think that there should be extra time in regular season matches or in home and away matches for you to reconsider your friendship. Anyway,
I will continue to say is that I always angered me when hockey took it away because I agree. I heard an announcer for one of my favorite teams, the Buffalo Sabres. He did a morning show and he said it. He goes, if one team didn't, if those teams in the regulation couldn't decide a winner, nobody deserves the win. Split the points, go home. And sometimes there are times that is almost as good a win to not lose. So I'm 100% with you. Love the draw. I think the draw it adds a whole degree. It adds a whole fun degree because you have the 2 point oddity, which throws them off when it comes to the ladder. So personally, I absolutely love it. Thought it was
if
fantastic. So
if they ever take it away, and I'm gonna just go completely unhinged here, if they ever take it away, I think you play 2.5 minutes going each way, and then if you win, the winner gets 3 points and the loser gets 1 point in the standings, and then if it's a tie, you get the 2 points. It is a completely unhinged because I think if you have to do that, you can't get the same way. And I know I've got it. There's got to be a handful of NRL fans. I hate the fact that they do that in the NRL with the golden point, and then they still award the same as a regulation win.
I'm
Whatever. Just
100% with you on that.
anyway.
I think I think it should be adjusted, especially with the 4 points for a win. I think that would be a nice little change. So that is it. That is all 9 games talked. Let's go to the burning questions. And I don't normally like talking about these type of topics, but it literally dominated all of every footy talk show, radio show, talkback show. Everybody wanted to talk about the Willie Rioli fiasco. And I want to gauge this for you as the media manager because several of these situations kind of went through social media. This thing kept evolving. This thing kept changing. So, in your personal opinion, Brian, who has more issues because of this, the AFL or Willie Rioli?
Uh, I think it all comes down how I mean the fact is that when you become a professional athlete, like you have to and look, I don't want to I mean to an extent everybody who is in the public eye, you have to conduct yourself a certain way. And look, we're all human beings. Willie's a human being just like you, me, and everybody else. The difference, however, is that you and I, we don't have millions of people on us. I maybe
Mhm.
have dozens. That's about it. You've got a great audience of a few hundred people, if not more. But but the thing is that at some point though, they've got to step in and they basically have to say like, you're on thin ice.
Mhm.
You represent yourself, you represent your club, you represent the sport. And either they put their foot down and they say and they read him the riot act because this is a chronic situation at this
Hmm.
point.
Hmm.
And look, it's there's a lot of extenuating things here. There's a lot of things in the background when it comes to this. But at the end of the day, he's a professional. He needs to act like a professional. And think of, I mean, look, I don't want us to turn into like, please think of the children, but in a way,
Yeah,
but
you have to.
seriously,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you're a role model in front of a bunch of fans. Again, you're a human being, and human beings have emotions, and human beings aren't
Yep.
perfect. We're fallible, and there are things that I certainly have said that I've regretted, and I'm sure
Hmm.
and I'm sure you have too, and I'm sure there's
Hmm.
many anybody who plays any sport I'm sure have done things that they regret, and of course there are some times when they've doubled down on things, and when they have, they've paid the price for it. So I think the AFL really, if they care that much about this, I think and really for Willie's sake, because they also, I think that if he keeps getting himself into these situations, I think it's going to be harmful for him not only as a professional but as a human. And I do think there is a duty of care that they do need to exert here. So hopefully they do the right thing and really kind of step into it a bit and tell him, this is, we can only help you so much, but let's
Hmm.
get you the help that you need and we'll go from there.
Well, here's my kind of thought process, and I've been stewing on this, and again, I don't usually like going into this off-field stuff because I feel that way too many times that we try to police people's behavior. And I get it. It's as you said, we're all infallible. We're human. Okay, we make mistakes. But for me, I look at it like this. I'm more disappointed in both in I'm equally disappointed in both. I'm disappointed in the AFL because come on, you have to know a little bit of this. Now,
Yeah.
I will give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt because it sounds like at least one of the events, if not both of them, that were prior to this game were not actually reported to them. So
Hmm.
I'm almost even a little bit almost a little bit disappointed in Geelong, and I can't remember who the other club was that I guess had the issue and they dealt with it internally. And I understand it. If you felt like that was the only way, that was what was necessary, that's fine. Okay, I get that. But at least you still have to let the AFL know, hey, we dealt with this internally, but we're just letting you know that this happened. So I'm a little bit turbed at Geelong, and I can't remember who the other club was. I can't remember, but they said this was like the third time. But I'm more upset because the AFL just, I mean, literally, pardon my French, they shit the bed on this because
Yeah.
they were like, well, nothing's wrong. And then all of a sudden, Morris comes out with a story. So, and you find out that there was the incident with Geelong, and then there was another incident. And the AFL kind of went, eh. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
seriously? And then like
Yeah.
people kind of called it out. Like I know some of the GWS fans were like, you dress up at an off-season party and you get suspended 3 games. This guy makes a legit threat
Yeah.
on the field, and I get it on the field, off the field. I honestly threatening threats are just stupid. I understand that you're a competitor, but threatening somebody's life, whether on the field or off the field, is just ridiculous in the first place and is unnecessary and absolutely unacceptable personally. But that's
Well,
again, that's just me. Again, people get heated, they say stupid stuff. I get it. But the AFL really stepped in it. And then my favorite part is they're like, we're not going to do anything. And then Willie Rioli comes out and goes, you know what? I've dealt with all of this crap. I'm going to take a week off. And the AFL, in its brilliance, then goes, oh, yeah, we're going to suspend Willie Rioli for 1 game after he's already personally suspended himself. And I'm just like,
yeah.
I mean, come on. I mean, come on, AFL. You literally, literally found a way. It's like driving down a highway with potholes
Yeah.
and intentionally hitting each one every single time. Like, come on, AFL. You can't. When I didn't think they could screw it up more and say something dumber, they found a way to do it. I mean, it was hold my beer moments.
Yeah.
Willie Rioli, personally, I get that you're frustrated, young man, and if this is bothering you that much, you need to get some help. You
Yeah.
really need to get some help because that is not a great way to manage your anger. And especially in that situation where you're threatening a player on another team with physical harm, you're lucky you are not suspended permanently
Yeah.
because I don't care what it is. You cannot threaten somebody with physical harm. Personally, I think the AFL missed a trick to suspend him for half the season. Come on, Willie, pull your head in.
Yeah. And look, listen, we're we don't know what it's like to go through what Willie had gone through and what so many other
Now
indigenous
here's
players.
here's
Yeah.
the other, and I don't mean to interrupt you,
Sure.
but the people that are trying to throw the people that are trying to make this like we can't say anything because Willie Rioli's indigenous. I'm sorry, I don't care what his skin coloration is. It doesn't matter. You still cannot threaten people
No, you
on the
can't.
field or off the field. That is an I'm sorry, Kashi, you're just wrong. That
Yeah.
is unacceptable for you to do that. In fact, you probably caused him to get racially abused even more because you did that. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I understand. Willie has went through a lot of things in his life. Honestly, I think he needs to take some time away from
Yeah.
football because right now, his headspace, he is way too wound up when he plays footy, way too wound up. And I get it, it's an emotional game, but it is unacceptable to some of the levels that he is taking it. I get it. Okay.
It's I mean, and here's the thing. I mean, look, like you said, Kachi was the one that brought that helped bring race into this and all this other stuff. And
Big
look,
time.
I will never know. I will never know what it's like to have to go to go what he specifically and what players like, like Goods and Betts and all those guys, and every single Indigenous player who's had to come through the game
Hmm.
and who's had to deal with that, and not just on the field, but just like living life in Australia as an Indigenous person. I will
Hmm.
never know what have to go with that.
Yep.
Just in the same way that I will never know what it's like to have been in Jackie Robinson's shoes or Frank
Hmm.
Robinson's shoes or Larry Doby or any of the players who've had to deal with racial discrimination. I will never have to do that. There is a specific way to go about it in a way that is impactful and in such a way that is within the bounds of professionalism. And I think there is and you know, like I said, I don't think he's he obviously, like you said, he's very upset by this. He's very upset, as he absolutely should be. But there's, in terms of his how he promotes himself, or how he carries himself as a representative of the sport, as a representative of himself. I think he, like you said, I think you're absolutely spot on. He's at the point where I think he needs to take some time away, and he needs to do that. And
And
it's
not
not
just one
just
game, and not
not
just
just
one
one
game.
game. He
No.
should he should take several games away, possibly even longer than that, maybe
Mhm.
even the entire season. But
And again,
he's not going to
And Port
do
Adelaide fans, I'm not saying that because I want him not playing. I want him to get the help because there just seems to be a lot that he's going through. I just think right now he should not be playing football.
it.
He should be getting his headspace correct to where he's playing for the enjoyment of playing the sport of
Exactly.
football and not getting so easily wrapped up into making physical threats. So I
Because
just,
his team no good by not getting help, because if
exactly.
it's going to unravel further, and it's going to do it at a point where it is going to be to the detriment of the team at the end of the day. And it's not just on the field results.
Mhm.
It's going to do more than this. And look, yeah, this is something that goes way beyond the sport. This is something that he personally is dealing with.
Mhm.
He should take the time, and he will come, if he does that, I bet you that he'll come back
Mhm.
better than he was
I
before.
agree.
And the team will be better off than that. I think the sport will be better off that, but more importantly, Willie Rioli will be better off that
Mhm.
way. And I think that's the most important thing.
And
So that's what so I think you're spot
exactly.
on with that.
And I love watching Willie Rioli play. I love
Mhm.
watching Liam Ryan play. I love watching Morris Rioli, Dan Rioli. I love the indigenous players. They are fantastic. Their flair and ability to play this game is magnificent. But I'm not going to sit here and give them a pass because of what they've had to deal with. It does not excuse it. Kashi was just wrong, and I know he'll never admit it, but he probably caused Willie more headaches than he tried to fix it. And I think that's the part that's the most frustrating. I love Willie Rioli. I think he's a fantastic player. When he's in the right headspace and playing the best football, he's one of the most dangerous small forwards in the competition. There's no argument with that. But I just really feel like he just take a month, dude. Go talk to a therapist, do some anger management, something, because right now he's just playing in a way he's going to do something that's going to inhibit him both as an athlete and as a person. And that can't be allowed to happen. Port Adelaide need to pull him, say, go see somebody, go talk to somebody, because right now there's just seems some issues that are seeping into the footy that really we can't have that happen. We
Yeah.
need to take care of you personally, and then I think your footy will actually get better when you've taken some of this anger and resentment and kind of gotten rid of it. So
Hmm.
we'll pass by that again. Love Willie Rioli to death. I just want him to be a better player, but I can't let something like that. That's unacceptable personally. So we'll go to it. We kind of talked about it a
Yeah.
little bit. Was this the greatest round of footy you have ever seen? Because personally, you and I have both been watching this game for years. It is hard to recall a round better than this, but as you said, only one game was under 3 goals.
Well, and I mean it's the best round that I've seen in recent memory. I racking my brain. I know that we've seen playoff rounds finals rounds that have
Oh yeah,
been
last year's I
yeah.
think preliminary and quarterfinal were fantastic, but this was a regular season, just a home and
Hmm.
away, probably one of the best home and away rounds I've ever seen. Competitive, great football, some intrigue, some controversy. There was
Yeah.
so much to talk about. It's
But
almost
we,
hard to get it down.
But you go through, I mean, you go up and down the list. I mean, you go and we were talking about this before we came on air. Especially again, you look at the Lions almost losing to the next to worst team in the league. You see, the Eagles come within a hair's breadth of finally getting their first victory. You
Mhm.
see, Geelong and a team that I think people were expecting to do a little bit better than they were fall at the finish line against the Giants. Gold Coast, a team that, you know, who would have thought that they'd be sitting in fourth, and then, again, they've got a game in hand over the teams around them, but who would have thought that they would have beaten the Bulldogs even at their home away from home? Who would have thought that Essendon would have the kind of victory that they had over Sydney? Up and down the round, it's not just the fact that they were close games, but these were teams that I think made games of it that a lot of people didn't expect to make games out of.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think in terms of thrilling, now, I've mentioned a lot of the lack of execution with a lot of the behinds and everything, and maybe again, if one or two of those straight, the results are different. But I think that's also what we love so much about the game is that how much will the pressure get to you? So yeah, this is the best one that I've seen at least in recent memory. And we're not even to the halfway point of the season. We still have a lot of football left.
Yeah, it's gonna be, and it gives us things to talk about. Like I said, North finding a way to get 2 points off of the Brisbane Lions. The Brisbane Lions choking away 4 points with a team that I think even I remember in my preview going, oh, this last game of the round, woohoo, what an entertaining,
Yeah.
and then finding out to be a draw, like Collingwood finding a way to win without four of their stars over a Fremantle side that again is in the headlines for all of the wrong reasons. They're not winning games that they probably should. Carlton and St. Kilda had the talk of the TDK thing. It was still a fantastic one. The controversy of the Melbourne Hawthorn game with the trip that wasn't called. So there was something in each of these games that just intrigued me. So I can't not say this. One of the best home and away rounds I have ever seen.
Hmm.
And I'm crossing my fingers that it hopes because early in the season, I remember asking a few of my people, it's hard when you see these 50, 60, 70 point wins early in the season when people are fresh. You don't see the massive amount of injuries and the change ups and everything like that as you see in from rounds like 15 to 20 when you're in the doldrums of the three-quarters of the way through the season and you're through your bye rounds and fighting through injury or fighting through lack of form. So to see this cracking round kind of revert everything after a few rounds where it was ugly
Yeah.
to watch a few of it. This was a breath of fresh air. I'm hoping it stays, but it was a breath of fresh air. So we will. I always end my burning questions with, I know you are a huge Hawthorn Hawks fan, so I gotta ask, sir, can this team be a legit flag contender? Because I know when Will Day went down, a lot of people were like, uh-oh, but they found a way. They're getting some wins. They're getting some impact. Great to see CJ Jath back. It's great to see him back. Seeing Barras and Battle playing really, really well. I know Barras had the week off this week, but still great to see they've shored up that defense and already a fantastic. And you still have some great players like Kel Shadir still to come back into this lineup.
Oh yeah, and I mentioned Gunston. I mean, Gunston taking control of the game in the fourth quarter, and Chol, and
Yep.
Bruce. I mean, Luke Bruce is still doing it. Ginnivan is still playing very well, and like you said, Giath is playing well, and I think as I look at this team every week, I think that this is definitely a team that it is almost, I don't know if it has the same dynamicism as the Lance Franklin days, as the Buddy Franklin
Oh yeah.
days, but it's a good team, and they're playing as well as they're playing. I mean, they hammered Richmond last week. They are coming off of games where they played Richmond, they played West Coast the week before that. They hung in against Geelong, and they probably could have won that game. Before that was I think there were yeah they I think they could have played better against Port Adelaide, and they lost by 30 points against them. And then before they were on the bye, they squeaked out a win against Greater Western Sydney. So I think the last couple of games I don't think have shown me a whole heck of a lot, because again, I feel like those are games that they're supposed to win. But if you look at the next few, they play Gold Coast at Gold Coast, and that's a team that I think, again, this isn't your father's Gold Coast Suns team.
Hmm.
Then they welcome in the Brisbane Lions, so they're playing, two of the teams that are with them in the top four, and actually they're playing Collingwood the week after that. So they're playing the other three teams that are currently sitting with them in the top four. We will know by the end of round 12
Hmm.
what this team is made of. Now,
Yep.
if they take all three, then they're sitting in the first place, and then they've got, you look at some of what they have before that. They play the Bulldogs. They host Adelaide in round 14, and then they've got what is this? They've got Hawthorn. I'm like looking at the schedule on the fly. I think they actually are they off on week 16, or they don't have a game around on the round after that. But as the case may be, I think their toughest games are going to come, and I think they're either going to still be in the mix and maybe even be at the top. I don't know that I could see them winning all three, but I feel like they could pick off at least one, maybe two. Now, if they lose all three, they may find themselves in the also rans and may miss out on the top four. But the real question will be where they stand after these three games against three very tough teams.
Yeah. Once you get through round 14, their bye is round 15, but then even after the bye, the schedule gets a little bit lighter. I know they come back for North Melbourne, St. Kilda, Fremantle, and Port Adelaide are their first four. That's 16 through 19 there. So they're running through their tougher part of the schedule as over these next few weeks. As you said, this will be their metal tester. This is where we find out,
Hmm.
are they legit, or did they catch some teams early in the season that maybe probably aren't going to be near the top of the ladder when the whips come a cracking come September. So I'm 100% with you. This game this week is an absolute gigantic one. Can you steal 4 points from Darwin? Because if you
Yeah.
can go up to Gold Coast and steal what is almost a fortress for Gold Coast over these last probably 5 or 6 years up in Darwin, you steal 4 points from that, legit people are looking at you going, you're back in the flag contendership talk. So cannot wait to see that one on Thursday night. I probably will get up for that one because I think that will be a magnificent game up at TIO Stadium up in Darwin. So that is it. That is all the burning questions. Let's jump to the part I take over the podcast just the tiniest bit to have a little bit of fun. This is always kind of one of those things that I added a couple of years ago. My team of the week, my team of the round, and our power rankings. Again, my homage to the fourth and long part of the podcast. We start on the defensive side for team of the week. On the fullback line, we see Alex Pierce kicking a goal from the fullback spot. Always a good one. Essendon's Andrew McGrath and West Coast Ryan Marich. At the halfback line, we see Jackson Clare of the St. Kilda Saints, Gold Coast Dan Rioli, and Port Adelaide's Connor Rosie. Through the mids on the wings, we see Melbourne's Harvey Langford and the Western Bulldogs Matt Kennedy. Through the center, we have Jack Crisp of the Collingwood Magpies, Essendon's Zach Merritt, and GWS's Tom Green. In the ruck, we have Sydney's Brody Grundy. On the half forward line, we have Jamie Elliott of the Collingwood Magpies, Carlton Blues Harry Mackay, and Essendon's Nate Caddy. And the full forward line, we have Jesse Hogan of the GWS Giants, the West Coast Jamie Cripps, and Adelaide's Riley Thilthorpe. Will round out the starting lineup. On the bench, we have defender Josh Weddle of the Hawthorn Hawks. At the ruck, big Toby Nankervis of the Richmond Tigers. Fremantle's Andy Brayshaw will be the midfielder, and the forward will be timeless Jack Gunston. So I know that was a lot of names really, really quickly. Just thoughts on the team of the week.
Um, Sounds good. No, seriously, I think with you, Donnie, listen, I can't argue with the coach. I think I think there's a lot of really good I think there's a lot of really good performances this week, and I think you covered them all. But I mean, yeah, you can't have a week like this without standout performers, and
Mhm.
I think you got everybody. I don't think anybody should be mad that they weren't included because I feel like that was really good.
Yeah, the one thing having the goals kind of differentiate sometimes really kind of helps break it down a little bit. But
Yeah,
sometimes this is one of those when it comes to the forwards, there was like seven guys that kicked 3 goals and they needed 5 spots.
yeah,
It was really fun. I felt like I was splitting hairs big time trying to get those last couple of spots, including the bench one for that. So this was one of those fun weeks. It wasn't one of those weeks where we had 7 guys kick 4 goals or more, so it was relatively easy to
yeah.
pick the team for
Pretty
forwards.
straightforward.
Yeah, it was like I know there was one round. It was like there was like 7 people all kicked 4 goals or more. So it was like, well, that's an easy forward line to
Yeah.
pick. So that one was good. So we'll jump to the power rankings again. I do this via form, not by where they are in the ladder. So there might be a little bit of differentiation, but let's have some fun. At 5, the Adelaide Crows. At 4, the Hawthorn Hawks. At 3, the Essendon Bombers. At 2, the Collingwood Magpies, and still at number 1, the Brisbane Lions. I know some people think, well, coach, it's a draw, but a draw is not a loss. And I think a loss is worse than a draw, so I will keep them there. Collingwood stayed back a little bit. You could maybe argue that Collingwood probably should be. They got a win instead of Brisbane, but again, Brisbane still with the better record over the last 5 games than Collingwood did. So that's why
You,
the Brisbane Lions stay at top.
every time you do that, I keep thinking you're going to break out into Casey Kasem. And now it's time for our long distance dedication. It comes from a man in Melbourne by the name of Jack, who wants to send a free kick to his friend. I went up, but yeah, I keep thinking
That's
you when you
funny.
do that countdown. Now on with the countdown.
I love it. No, I absolutely love it. No, not a problem at all. So it'll be fun. I thoroughly I get a kick out of that. But the power rankings are always so much fun. So I know we're still early in the week. I know injury lists and all that. So this sometimes comes back to bite me when it comes to my tips. But let's go to it, sir. Let's tip round one of this particular season. And for some weird reason, my computer has absolutely lost itself.
Oh
So
no.
let me see if I can. Okay, that was the problem. I still had one of the filters on. There we go. Yay, it's all
Yay.
fixed now. Great. All right. We jump to it, and I have to say this before you Sir Douglas Nichols rounds, both 10 and 11. I cannot wait for this. These are always so much fun. I know you both Brian and I, before we hopped on, were looking at some of these absolutely magnificent jumpers. I mean, I cannot wait to see some of these. I mean, the fact that we even have like Yartapulti, Port Adelaide, and Hawthorn both having both home and away special Indigenous Sir Douglas Nichols round jerseys. Cannot wait to see this. So let's jump right into it. To start off, Indigenous round, absolutely love it. Gold Coast, Hawthorn. Again, I cannot wait for this one up in Darwin. Who do you like?
Oh,
Suns, Hawks.
this is going to be a fun game, I think. And I mean, and we've just been talking about, this is going to be the first of the gauntlet for Hawthorn. And really, I think this is going to be defining for Gold Coast too. I mean, what kind of Gold Coast? I mean, we saw how well they've done after 8 games, but this is how will they soar? Will they continue to soar majestically, or at one point do we see Icarus syndrome break in? I like Gold Coast at home here. Um, but I think Hawthorne's going to win this, and it's going to be less than a goal. I think this is going to be a classic. As much as Gold Coast is, I like the experience of Hawthorne to get up over this, and I think they're more experienced in these high pressure games. So I like the Hawks on the road.
Darwin in Darwin, this is one of those where it's played is going
Yeah.
to influence my tip. Being in Darwin, Gold Coast playing at home, going to tip the Suns in this one. But I am with you. Like, if you force me to do a upset tip of the round, I think Hawthorne is built for this particular game. They're a young, quick, running side. It'll be fascinating to see how their game translates up in Darwin. How's the weather going to be? Is it going to be hot? Is it going to be sticky? Is it going to be will that affect their run game? It'll be fascinating on this one. Got to tip the Suns, but I think the Hawks are in this one up to their eyeballs. Cannot wait for that one. Friday night footy sees yours truly getting up at 4:40 in the morning for this fantastic one at the SCG. Swans, Carlton Blues. I'm gonna do it. I don't normally like doing it. I know some of my Swans fans give me a little bit of stick when I do this. I'm gonna tip Carlton. I don't like the way the Swans are playing. I'm gonna hedge my bet here. The fun tip. If I get the if Carlton wins, I get the tip right. If Sydney wins, hey, at least my team wins. So I'm gonna hedge my bets on this one. So I'm gonna tip Carlton in this one, thinking those two forwards, no Melican. Tommy McCartan's gonna have to pick one of the monsters. Then the question will be is who takes the other. Can they stomp the big two forwards for Carlton? I don't know if they can. Be a fun one. Gonna tip the Blues.
Um, I'll pick you up and tip the Swans in this one at home. As well as Carlton is playing, and listen, they're the only team not in the eight with a positive positive that I, I'm not really sold on them in terms of how they play in some of these types of games. I think Sydney will be mad after this last game. Again, they're playing at home. I think this might be another classic. I think this will be a tight game, but I think Sydney will win. I pick the Swans.
Yeah, I'm hoping you're right, really do. So I'm a little disappointed that this is a Saturday afternoon.
Oh.
This is a Saturday afternoon game. It'd be an absolute cracker. Collingwood, Adelaide, MCG. The Crows get to apply their craft at the big ground that is the MCG, taking on the Pies. Absolutely classic one here. Another one, like the first round for me, it's where it's played, I think influences this. I have the Pies winning this one, but I think the Crows play very well in this one. This is going to come to late in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's going to be I think it's going to come all the way down to the end, I think.
Yep, nope, 100% on this one. Yartapulti is Port Adelaide as Adelaide Oval sees Yartapulti take on the Geelong Cats. I, I'm interested in your thoughts on this one because this one's hard to tip for me.
Yeah, and I mean Geelong's still a good team, but I don't know. They didn't I feel like the fact that they didn't put away the game against GWS here. I don't know. I kind of like Port Adelaide at home. I mean, I think this could go two ways. I think either Geelong continues their skid or they're just motivated by what happened last week. I think Port Adelaide will get up over it. I think Port Adelaide, both teams I feel could have conceivably have won this past week. I think the Power are going to win this one, and I think it's going to be. But I think once again, this is going to be a very close game. And you know, kind of feel like we have a pattern developing here, Donnie. It's been really difficult. We've had 4 games here, and I don't know that I could say that any of these games are going to be decided by much more than a goal.
Yeah, no, this is shaping up, just looking at this through our tips right now. This is shaping up as another humdinger of a round. I hope, crossing my fingers, that it doesn't get out of hand in a couple of these games, that we see that competitive footy. I'm going to tip Geelong. I trust Coach Scott to get his guys up and about. I honestly, I think Willie Rioli's absence will hurt this group because
Hmm.
he really is a linchpin for them in the forward. I know he's not the Georgiardi's the target forward. And I know Sam Palpepper is their sandpaper grit. Absolutely love him to death. But this is a game that's perfect for a Willie Rioli because you've got a good, stingy defense back there. You want ground ball gets, and he's
Hmm.
really good at it. I think they're going to miss that. I don't think Darcy Burns Jones brings that to you. I don't know if Port Adelaide's got anybody in the sandful that they can bring up to fix or fit that hole. So I'm going to tip the Cats in this one. I think Coach Scott he revs them up. Danger loves playing Port
Yeah.
Adelaide.
Yeah, he
So
really does.
this one could be fun on this one. See what I think is a mini Dangerfield in Jason Horn Francis against the master that is Danger. So I like Geelong in this one. Danger didn't have himself a great game. Usually he doesn't have two bad games in a row. So Cats on this one for me. A fun one up in NG Stadium. GWS versus Wallulup Fremantle. I'm going to tip the Giants. I don't like Fremantle leaves the confines of Western Australia, and sometimes they leave their game at home, aka look a couple of weeks ago on the Friday night footy against St. Kilda. So I'm going to tip the Giants in this one, hoping Fremantle stays in this, but this could get ugly if Wallulup does not show up.
I agree. I don't think they really haven't shown up fully for the last couple of games. And like you said, going cross country is very difficult, really, in either direction.
Yep.
But I think GWS takes this one, and I think this now we've kind of come across one that I don't know will be as close. I don't think the Dockers will get blown. I don't think it'll be a wire to wire blowout, but I think the Dockers, I don't know that they're on GWS's level as close as they are. Again, they're only a game back in the standings, but I like GWS at home here.
Yeah, that one's gonna be a fun one. A humdinger under the lid at Marvel Stadium Saturday night primetime footy gives us a great one as the Western Bulldogs take on Essendon under the lid at Marvel Stadium. Cannot wait for this one. Who do you like in this one?
I like the doggies, but not again. I think this is going to be a close one. Coming off of the game last week against Gold Coast, I think uh, and Essendon, of course, is coming off of a victory, but I like the doggies here. I like the way they control the ball. I think Essendon, I think, has the tendency to make mistakes, like when they are under pressure. As much as I like the Bombers and as much as I think, and again, it's kind of hard. Again, they're a half game. They still have a game in hand against those other teams, but they also haven't, they've also struggled like defensively at times. And I think that the Bulldogs can exploit that. So I pick Footscray.
Yeah, this is one of those. I think there's two players that I think there's nothing. I'm just not sure if Essendon can really solve these problems, and that is Tim English in the Rock. I love Goldie to death, really love Goldie to death, but Brody Grundy had himself a day against Goldie last week, and Marcus Bontempelli. Who do you put on him?
Yeah.
Who do you put on it? You can't tag him. And he's an absolute matchup nightmare. If he goes forward, he's going to draw one of your he's going to draw one of your bigger defenders, which is going to let Riley West and Aaron Naughton have field days potentially on that. You still have Joel Frazier coming off the wing. I like the doggies. I just think they match up really, really well against them. I just don't know if Goldie's going to be enough to silence Tim English. And if Bontempelli gets off the chain, there is nobody on Essendon's side that can reel him in. And I think that's just a recipe for disaster, especially as you said, with Essendon's defensive deficiencies at
Yeah.
times that they've shown this year. Because I think a lot of their backs are a little bit too forward leaning, and sometimes it really hurts them. So I like the doggies in this one, but that could be another classic, especially under the lid at Marvel. Fun one, MCG, Richmond Tigers, North Melbourne Roos, the first game on Sunday afternoon. I'm hoping for another great one with the Tigers facing another team around their spots in the ladder with North Melbourne. Can North Melbourne right the ship, get their win after what would most people would say is an honorable draw?
You know what I kind of this is I'm being tangential here, but I find it kind of funny that Richmond is sitting currently at 16th in the ladder, and they played the worst team in a team that may only win one or two games this season in West Coast. They still got almost 30,000 people to watch the game.
Yep,
How good's footy? Like,
yep.
there are baseball teams that can't even draw 30,000 over the span of a week. And these two, in North, I think, these two teams might play in front of, I mean, who knows, like 40,000 people. It's going to be a good game. You know what? I think just to kind of stir things up, I picked North Melbourne.
Hmm.
I think that you have to have momentum. You have to have something carrying you going into the next game. And really, honestly, the question is who has the bigger momentum? North Melbourne has to feel like they can take on just about anybody and they can play with no fear. I don't know that that's going to how high that's going to catapult them at the end of the day, but against the team that's right in front of them, against the team, again that is coming off a victory against West Coast, albeit against West Coast, I think they can get the win at the MCAG, and I think the competition would be very. I think North Melbourne would be very would we would get a really tremendous boost as we may move towards the halfway point of the season.
Yep, I'm with you. I tip North Melbourne, and for me, it's more because Richmond has not sustained two great games in a row. This season, they have that great game, and then they have not so good a game following up. The consistency with a young side again, a lot of youngsters coming through this team again. Some of the veterans have left from the premierships before. They still got some around. Lynch is still there, Broad's still there, Vlaston's still there, Nate Curvis is still there, but they're just a little bit too inconsistent for me. I think North is maybe finding that groove that I think we've been all waiting for it to happen. So I'm with you. I'm going to tip North in this one. I like the Tristan Jerry Nank match is going to be fantastic
Yeah.
to watch in the ruck. Always seeing those two big bulls get after each other, and both of them are quite athletic. They get around the ground a lot. Going to be fun. Seeing Taranto and Hopper versus Luke Parker and Luke Davies Uniacke. That's going to be a fun one through the center. That's going to be that one could be a sneaky good game there. Up to the GABA, a fun one as Brisbane take on Melbourne up at the GABA. In- Melbourne's been playing better, but I think Brisbane's going to be breathing fire in this one, and I think Melbourne's going to walk into an absolute firefight on this one. I like Brisbane, and this one could get away from Nam if they cannot hold the phone, because this is a Lions team that's going to be very, very angry.
Yeah, Lions in a canter, I think. And listen, the Demons aren't again, they're playing decently. I think they're playing a little bit better than their record right now, but I don't think I feel like it was a rare performance that we saw with Brisbane, and it's I think if they were walking into a game against a better team, I think I would probably tip against the Lions, but I can't see them beating the Demons at the GABA.
Yep. Yep. No, 100% with you. And then last but not least, a fun one out at Optus Stadium, West Coast. I'm not even going to try to butcher the indigenous names. So those that are listening, I'm not going to butcher these two names because I do not want to disrespect you. West Coast versus St. Kilda, last game at Optus Stadium. I'm going to tell you this. I really came close to tipping West Coast because cross country trip, St. Kilda coming off a tough loss. Again, be fascinating. Hoping Ross gets them up and about, but this could be a recipe. I'm going to tip the Saints, but will not shock me if West Coast finds a way to get the 4 points here.
According to their website, by the way, it's Uroke
Yep.
is how you pronounce it. In case anybody is so, a little bit of research goes a long way. But I appreciate you not jumping off the ledge there without a net. Um, I I like I I think West Coast has to be really heartened by the performance that they give. Um, I feel like they're going to challenge against St. Kilda. As I'm not really sold on St. Kilda just at all. I feel like they've struggled at times against some of these really good teams, and yeah, it's gonna. I think it'll be a close game, but I like St. Kilda, but not by much.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fascinating one on that one. Again, I'm really interested to hear, really interested to see how St. Kilda approaches this game. Ross Lyon sometimes can have some very fascinating approaches to this for sure. So, well, Brian, that is it. That is all 9 games for this round. Tipped again, Sir Douglas Nichols round is always one of my favorites. The Guernseys look absolutely
Yeah.
magnificent. I was like I said, I was before Brian hopped on. I was just going through and just admiring how absolutely fantastic these Guernseys look. They're going to look fantastic under the lights and on it. Cannot wait for it. So again, Brian, everything that you do with the USAFL, again, I thank you for it. Again, we keep an eye. I know the new website. I had to go find it. I've totally missed that we had updated the website. Went through it. Absolutely fantastic. It's great to see the website get a little bit of an upgrade and some new things on that. So absolutely fantastic. So always great to sit down and chat footy with you, sir.
I appreciate it. Thank you for everything that you do, not just for advancing, footy from an American point of view, but everything you do locally there in Des Moines and part of the US AFL. And always good talking footy. And listen, as good of a round as we had this week, I hope that your show next week is even better because I feel like we have a lot of really good games on tap next week as well.
Absolutely cannot wait. So that is going to do it for another episode of Donnie's Disposals. Again, if you were liking what you were listening to when it comes to it, please like and subscribe. And again, keep an eye out some more great footy content coming up. I know that I cannot wait. I have some Sandful to talk about. There's been some fantastic Sandful footy to discuss coming up here soon. So that is going to do it for another episode of Donnie's Disposals. And we'll be back with more footy coverage very, very soon.